Okay, it's time. We're going to start our session from afternoon. The first speaker is going to be Dr. Joe Perez, and the title is The Difference, Leadership Lessons from a Home-Built Car. Please, Dr. Joe.
Thank you so much. Hello. Welcome to my session. And I am hoping that this will be something that you will find from which you will derive some benefit. A little bit about me. I am a senior systems specialist and team leader at the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And I write books and I speak at conferences on the side. So I have a great time doing it. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And so it is my honor and pleasure to be with you here today. At the very end, I have a QR code. If you're interested, I'm not going to talk about the book, but if you're interested, we can talk about it later. I also have candy. So there will be a reward if you are able to answer my questions. So without much further ado, honjitsu wa okoshi itadaki makoto ni arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you. There's more. Kono yona kikai o itadaketa koto ni mukaku kancha itashimasu. Totomo ni minasana itote yuishi namonoto nareba saiwai desu. Thank you. Thank you. You're very kind. What I think I said, what I hope I said was, thank you so much for coming today. I am very grateful for the opportunity, and I hope you find my talk valuable. That's what I think I said. Most of my speech, thankfully, will be in English, maybe a little more Japanese. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take you back to the year 1925, a time when the world was simpler, but no less challenging. It was then that a man named Gus Petzel embarked on a journey that we would not even dream of adapting. If you'll excuse me one moment, something is not right. I do not know why yes. There's a problem with it's not advancing. Okay, now it is. Okay. I don't know what the problem was. All right, I'm sorry. Okay, talking about Gus Petzel. All right. Yes, indeed. So, 1925. All right. It was a time when the world was simpler, but no less challenging. It was in that year that a man named Gus Petzel embarked on a journey that most of us would not even dream of entering. Gus was not a professional car builder, nor was he a celebrated mechanic. He was simply a man with a vision, a can-do attitude, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. His mission: to travel clear across the United States from San Francisco to Washington in a car that he had built with his own two hands. And he called it the Midget Special. It was equipped with a 4-cylinder engine, just 3 gears, and weighing a little over 250 kilograms. Believe it or not, it could reach a top speed of 128 kilometers per hour. Fuel efficiency was even more impressive, 56 miles to the gallon, or more than 24 kilometers per liter. Here's the interesting thing, though. Gus built this mini marvel by scavenging parts from other vehicles. The wheels came from a small airplane, and pretty much every piece had some kind of a story behind it. Now think about that for just a moment, folks. A self-made car, right, built out of ingenuity, resourcefulness, and spare parts, carried this man clear across America, a distance of more than 4,500 kilometers. Now, that would be like you building a car all by yourself and then taking that car and driving it from here in Tokyo all the way up to Aomori in Honshu and back 3 times over. And he did this not because his car was perfect, but because it was excellent enough to get the job done. And in its perfection, I think it taught us something very profound, okay? Very profound about our data ops, very profound about DevOps, very profound about life in general. And these are other lessons. Some people might think, oh, leadership, well, leadership is perfection, right? You think it's all about perfection, but it's not, okay? Leadership is about finding your ikigai. I think you will like that. Let me find where that is. The ikigai, let's see. Most people think that the ikigai is like that, those four different concentric circles, right? But no, they're not four concentric circles, okay? I'm hoping to show you the difference. All right. I have built a leadership framework that I hope you will want to follow as a DevOps professional. As a matter of fact, I believe these should be guiding principles for those in any walk of life who want to rise above mediocrity, who dare to challenge the ordinary, who are determined to break free from complacency, and who refuse to be satisfied with the status quo. At its core, excellence in leadership involves knowing the difference between the simple and the easy with clarity, the important and the urgent with control, the good and the great with courage, the smart and the wise with creativity, and the perfect and the excellent with commitment. I'd like to jump right into the first of these 5 cornerstones or guideposts as we navigate our way from mediocrity and maybe a little bit more towards magnificence. Number 1, the difference between simple and easy. Key word is clarity. Now, from a dictionary point of view, we're just looking it up here. The difference between simple and easy lies in their essence. Look, simple refers to something basic, plain, and uncomplicated. However, simple does not always mean easy. Easy implies a lack of difficulty or effort, which is not always the case with simplicity. For you see, a task can be simple in its structure, right? But still demand significant effort to complete, while something easy might still involve complexity. As Leonardo da Vinci has been quoted as saying, I love this, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Leaders need to understand that choosing the simple path often requires focus, determination, and hard work to achieve meaningful results. It requires a command of the concept of clarity. Now, in the case of our home-built car, Gus Petzel, his journey was not easy at all, but you know what? It was pretty simple, right? His goal was clear, to cross the USA in his self-built car. The simplicity of his mission, though, did not mean that it lacked challenges. Far from it. Simplicity focuses on the essentials, cuts through the noise, and guess what? It stays lined up with your purpose. Now, as leaders, we need to embrace clarity because clarity is what helps us to distinguish between what's simple and what's just plain easy. Now, the easy, well, that's tempting, is it not? Right? It's the path of least resistance. But clarity reminds us that the simple path, while challenging, leads to meaningful results. Now, I want to make it more relevant for you. Easy in DevOps is skipping the monitoring you should do, whereas simple is building systems that alert you before the problems arise, especially if you took the DORA survey, right? Look, They embrace hard work because they see the bigger picture. Hi? Hi. All right. In 2010, the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA, faced an extraordinary challenge with the Hayabusa mission, which aimed to return a sample from the asteroid Itokawa, a feat that had never been accomplished before, ever. And after a series of technical failures, including a fuel leak and a malfunctioning sampling device, it seemed that the mission would be doomed. But JAXA's able leadership and their phenomenal engineers demonstrated remarkable clarity by focusing on the most critical objective, and that is bringing the spacecraft and its precious cargo back to Earth. Through innovative problem solving and precise decision making, they overcame immense obstacles. And the Hayabusa success story, it returned to Earth, making history as the first mission ever to retrieve asteroid material. Now, NASA's Apollo 13 mission is often celebrated and applauded for its clarity under pressure, yes, but JAXA's Hayabusa mission is a testament to the same principle, and that is clarity in leadership means focusing on what truly matters, even when the path is anything but easy. You know, these guys certainly found their ikigai, didn't they? Right? Now, what does that look like in your daily life? Okay, clarity begins with knowing your priorities. Let me ask you something. What is the one thing that you truly need to accomplish today? Now, whether you are leading a team or managing your own workflow, stop and ask yourself a simple question. What is my mission? And what is the simplest path for me to get there? You know, when distractions, shiny objects, and competing demands vie for your attention, clarity is what brings you down to reality. Make a habit of writing down, say, your top 3 priorities every morning before you start your day. And look upon those priorities as being more significant than just plain ordinary tasks. These are things that should be lining up with your larger goals and aspirations. And when challenges arise, as they did for both NASA and JAXA, you know what clarity means? Cutting through the noise and focusing on the thing that matters the most. Okay, if your team is overwhelmed, well, then simplify the process. Break down complex problems into manageable steps. Teach your team to focus on solutions rather than getting bogged down in the problem itself. You know, if you think clarity comes by simply doing more things, you might be a little mistaken. For you see, clarity is about doing what matters. Nibambe, number 2. The difference between the important and the urgent. Keyword here, control. Now, distinguishing between important things and urgent things is critical here, because important tasks are the ones that have significant value or impact on achieving long-term goals or objectives. They line up with your greater purpose and contribute to meaningful progress. Urgent tasks, on the other hand, demand immediate attention, often creating a sense of pressure or crisis. And urgent can feel compelling at the moment. It does not always line up with the most important things. Fixing a broken build might feel urgent, but designing a resilient CI/CD pipeline that might be less likely to break in the first place, that is what's truly important. As U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower once said, I love this, what is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. Hi? Leaders who grasp this distinction exercise what? Control over their choices, directing their energy towards what drives real results instead of simply reacting to the demands of the moment. Now imagine Gus driving his midget special car. You know, every decision he made, whether it was to stop for fuel, repair a part, or push through the terrain, you know, that required him to prioritize. Now, some things were urgent, but they were not always important. Leadership is about understanding this distinction and exercising what? Control over where we direct our energy. As DevOps leaders, we need to resist what I call the tyranny of the urgent. Not original with me, but okay. Urgent tasks might often scream for our attention, but important tasks are the ones that shape our future. You know what control is? The discipline to focus on the one and not the other, even when the world around us demands otherwise. Gus Petzel did not let the urgency of the moment distract him from his ultimate goal. And guess what? Neither should we, right? Okay, President Eisenhower, back to him now. He famously managed his time using what we now call the Eisenhower matrix, separating tasks into 4 categories based on urgency and importance, along with actions that accompany each category. So if you're following the matrix, you either do it, schedule it, delegate it, or delete it. One of Eisenhower's greatest acts of prioritization was championing the creation of the interstate highway system in the United States, a long-term project that lasted for decades and transformed transportation in America. It was certainly not urgent at the time, but it was critically important for the nation's economy and security. Now, what does that look like in our everyday life? Well, putting this into practice starts with learning to prioritize effectively. Now, in Japanese culture, I understand that saying ie or no directly can sometimes be a little bit impolite and maybe make you feel a little uncomfortable, as harmony and respect, I understand, are deeply valued in your culture. But control often means carefully choosing what to say yes to so that you can focus on the things that are most important. So start by using the Eisenhower matrix where you can in your team. List your tasks, for instance, and sort them into those 4 categories, right? Urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and then those that are neither urgent nor important, right? Your goal here is to spend the majority of your time, if you can, on things that are important but not so much urgent, that category. Because you see, this is where long-term growth, planning, and meaningful progress happens. Patching a critical vulnerability is important, but constantly responding to low priority alerts can keep you stuck in the urgent at the expense of long-term security, right? If you're leading a team, teach them to distinguish between, maybe a fire drill and a foundational work. Encourage conversations about priorities on your team, and do not let the loudest voice in the room necessarily dictate where you will spend all your time. Now, please don't misunderstand me. There are certain situations in which you simply must do what's urgent right now, right? There will be times where you will indeed have to drop everything you're doing. Hi? Yeah. I am certainly not suggesting that we ignore the urgent. You need to do what you have to do at the moment, according to whatever the circumstances are in which you find yourself. Arigato, Dr. Joe. Well, hey, I'm sorry. I never said it was easy, right? I never said that. But, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush either. Here's my point. Exercise control and discernment. Remember, control is about being proactive rather than reactive. And what I said earlier about clarity will apply equally here to control. Not so much the number of things you necessarily do or the constant push to do more. And that can be a good thing, right? But it comes right down to doing the thing that moves the needle. Or, as you, my dear Japanese friends, might say, don't be the koi fish frantically swimming in circles be the Zen gardener who's calmly raking the sand. Or it might sound something like this. Oh boy. Guruta yoni guru guru, yogi maravu koi diate buanararai. Suna o Shizuka, Nihaki Narashu, Zen no Iguashi Diari. I don't think I said that right, but yeah, close, close. Okay. I need Japanese lessons. All right, Samba, number 3. The difference between good and great. You know what that takes? Courage. Good is often used to describe something that meets a satisfactory standard of some sort or fulfills its intended purpose, while great, on the other hand, implies excellence, distinction, superiority. Good may be sufficient just to get by, but great goes a step further. It goes beyond, exceeding expectations and creating lasting impact. Good is adequate, yeah, but great is exceptional. And it is the pursuit of greatness that sets true leaders apart. Minasan, kite kudasai. In DevOps, good might fix today's bugs, but great anticipates tomorrow's. Now back to our friend Gus. Building a car from nothing and driving it across the United States wasn't merely a good thing. It was great. And why is that? Well, because Gus had the courage to think beyond the ordinary. He did not settle for what was easy or conventional. He dared to take risks, innovate, and push the boundaries of what was possible. And that's the difference between the good and the what? Great. Exactly. Hi. In a speech at Rice University in Texas on September 12, 1962, U.S. President John F. Kennedy said this: "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win, and the others too." Part of choosing between the good and the great involves recognizing those same things. The challenges that you are, 1, willing to accept, 2, unwilling to postpone, and 3, that you intend to win. That takes a great deal of what? Courage. And great leadership requires the same courage. It is easy to settle for good enough, but greatness demands that we step out of our comfort zone, raising the bar, challenging the status quo, and inspiring others to do the same. That's what it's all about. And here's something that I'd like for you to understand. So, kite kudasai. Courage is the fuel that drives leaders towards greatness. Tap into it now, or risk being left behind. Now, you may have heard of American baseball player Jackie Robinson. Hi? Yeah? He broke Major League Baseball's color barrier in 1947. Now, that's a powerful example of courage. Not only did he face discrimination and hostility from fans, players, and even teammates, but he also had to perform at an exceptional level to prove he belonged. See, Robinson's courage to endure and excel changed the game forever, and it opened doors for countless others. Now, imagine this. If Jackie Robinson had played alongside Shohei Ohtani, you remember him from the Tokyo Swallows? Yes. The combination of Robinson's courage and Ohtani's brilliance, wow, that would have been unstoppable if he had been around back then, breaking barriers and breaking records too. By the way, didn't Ohtani hit a grand slam home run in the second inning of the baseball classic last month? Yeah, that was a good game. If I remember correctly, I think you guys, Japan, won that game, right? The score was, 13-0, something like that? Yeah. Well, you know what? It's a good thing Ohtani plays for the Dodgers. Sorry. I'm teasing. All right, move on. Now, courage in everyday life. It means speaking up when it's easier to say nothing. Sometimes you have to have a difficult conversation, whether it's firmly but kindly and nicely and politely telling a colleague about their performance, or maybe standing by a decision that may be a little unpopular but necessary. You do not have to save the entire production pipeline in just one day, right? Start small. Commit to, say, I don't know, one act of courage per week. And this might mean advocating for a new idea in a meeting, asking for feedback, admitting when you've made a mistake, that sort of thing. For leaders, courage also means setting higher standards for yourself and for your team. Do not settle for good enough. No. Challenge yourself to think bigger, aim higher, and take calculated risk. And when fear creeps in, well, remember Jackie Robinson, right? Greatness is never achieved without courage. Now, before we go on to number 4, I would like to have a brief review, and let's see how much you remember what we've covered so far. Hi, we good? All right, let's see. I'm going to see if you can earn some candy. Who can tell me? I've never tried this before in Japanese, but who can tell me what is the first key word? The one that begins with the letter C. Yes, sir. That is correct. Let's see if I can make it all the way back there. Here you go. All right, good catch. Yes, clarity. That is correct. Between the simple and the what? Easy, right. All right, who can tell me the second pillar, the difference between something and something? Anybody remember? All right, I'll reveal it. The difference between, I'm sorry. Do you remember the key word? Oh, good catch. Wow, 2 for 2. All right, that's right. Control, that's right. How about the third one? They both start with G. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Oh, boy. Wow, hey, Otani, I've come again. Right, the difference between the good and the great. And does anybody remember what the key word is that goes with good and great? Ooh. Yes. All right. So, arigato. Y'all are just amazing. Amazing audience. Thank you for your patience and kindness. All right, Yombame, number 4. The difference between the smart and the wise. Keyword, creativity. So if you look it up in the dictionary, the difference between 2 words should be pretty obvious and easy, but people don't always get it. Smart is about intelligence, quick thinking, solving problems with knowledge and some sort of cleverness. But wise, on the other hand, goes deeper. It is the ability to apply knowledge with experience, empathy, and sound judgment. Being smart is knowing the facts, but being wise is understanding how to use those facts to make meaningful decisions. It involves creativity. Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to skip the example about the Welchia worm. You can ask me about it later if you'd like. Okay, but let's talk about Gus. His midget special was a masterpiece of creativity. He didn't have a blueprint or a set of instructions or anything else. He improvised, innovated, and made the most of the resources he had. You know what that is? That is the difference between being smart and being what? Wise. That's right. Good. Wise. Arigato. See, smart leaders know facts. Wise leaders apply facts in creative and meaningful ways. I often find guidance in the Japanese wisdom that says this. I love this. It is better to be foolish and be aware of your own foolishness than to be foolish and think that you are smart. Now, my source may be wrong, but it's true. Creativity is the thing that allows us to adapt, solve problems, and find new paths forward. It goes way beyond knowing the rules. It sometimes means knowing when to bend those rules a little bit when necessary. And Gus's creativity turned a pile of spare parts into a vehicle, think about this, that could cross a continent. Kita kudasai. Imagine what your creativity can achieve. During World War II, the British military had the ability to outsmart the Germans in a thing that they called Operation Mincemeat. They planted fake invasion plans on a corpse, a dead body, that was disguised as a British officer. And they let it wash up on the coast of Spain, where, of course, German agents discovered it. Was ist los? Yeah. And it convinced the Germans to divert their forces, and this became one of the war's most successful deception operations. Now, what does that look like in our everyday eyes? Look, creativity starts with asking better questions. When you're faced with a problem, instead of asking, what can't we do, ask yourself, what can we do with what we have, right? Shift the focus from problems to possibilities, from obstacles to opportunities, from adversity to advantage. If resources are scarce, so what? Turn it into an opportunity to innovate. Think of ways of repurposing existing tools or simplifying complex processes. Encourage creativity in your team by creating an environment, an atmosphere where it is okay to make mistakes. Guess what? Innovation thrives when people are not afraid to make a mistake or being wrong. Okay? Host brainstorming sessions where there's no such thing as a bad idea and create a space for unconventional thinking. It might look like creativity is only being artistic and drawing. And no, in reality, creativity challenges you to find new ways to solve problems and break down barriers. I want to stop here and share with you another story of ingenuity, one of thinking outside of the box can change everything. In 1901, British inventor Hubert Cecil Booth attended a demonstration of a machine that was designed to clean railroad cars by blowing pressurized air to remove dust. What? Booth had a simple question. Wait a minute. Why not reverse the process? Why blow dust around where you can suck it up instead? Now, that makes sense to me, but you know what? The presenter dismissed Booth's idea outright. He claimed, oh, that is totally impossible. No can do. Booth? He wasn't convinced. He went on to create a machine that did exactly what everybody else thought could not be done. It is now called a vacuum cleaner. Serious. His first invention, it was called the Puffing Billy. It was massive, horse-drawn, with hoses snaking into homes through open windows, ugly as anything. It wasn't excellent by any means, but it was a working thing. By 1906, 5 years later, he had developed smaller, more portable designs, and his foundation, or his work, laid the foundation for the modern vacuum industry. It proves great ideas sometimes come from questioning the status quo and daring to try the impossible. This story is a perfect example of creativity in action, getting to the place where you start shifting your perspective, asking the right questions, and refusing to accept the limitations imposed upon you by other people. And that's the difference between the what? The smart and the wise. Very good. Exactly. And what does it take to accomplish this? What is the C word? Creativity. Hi. Well done. All right. This brings us to the final leadership. Obama, number 5. The difference between the perfect and the excellence. Now that takes commitment. Japanese businessman and visionary Aiichi Shibusawa once said, I love this quote, any business founded by holding to morals is not a failure. Any business that prospers without holding to morals is not a success. Yeah. But you see, Shibusawa understood the difference between striving for perfection and pursuing excellence. He left a prestigious government career to build Japan's modern financial system, founding more than 500 companies and championing ethical capitalism. His commitment to progress and societal well-being outweighed any desire for flawless execution. Shibusawa also said this: a nation does not grow rich when only one person grows rich. His philosophy emphasized collaboration, progress, and the greater good over unobtainable perfection. Shibusawa's work was not perfect. He faced challenges, he faced setbacks, he faced criticism. But you know what? It was excellent because it transformed Japan's economy and helped individuals to contribute to national progress. Now, with that in mind, let's take one final look at Gus Petzel's invention, the midget special. Admittedly, it was not perfect. It was not the fastest, it was not the fanciest, nor even the most reliable car. It would definitely not win a race against the Narita Express. Wouldn't win against the Shinkansen either. But it was excellent because it got the job done. For you see, Gus's commitment to his goal outweighed any imperfections that may have been in his car. All right, rather than waiting for imperfection, he worked with what he had and made it excellent. For you see, perfection means doing something flawlessly. It leaves no room for error. Now, that is certainly a worthy goal, as Shibusawa's philosophy implies, right? But it's rarely obtained. Excellence, on the other hand, is about striving for the best possible outcome, focusing on progress over perfection, and going with the results in spite of imperfection. As DevOps leaders, sometimes we might fall a little bit into the trap of perfectionism, do we not? Nothing wrong with that, but excellence is what makes the difference. And commitment is the difference between the two. You must show up, must do the work, must deliver results. Yes, even when the conditions surrounding you are not ideal. Always get everything right when you can, but do not let it weigh on you too much if you can't. Excellence doesn't mean you have to be flawless. You simply have to be effective. And that takes what? The word that begins with a C? Commitment. Why? Because in DevOps, maintaining seamless collaboration and delivering continuous improvement is a relentless, never-ending effort. American inventor Thomas Edison, I love what he said here. I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Yeah. His commitment to that project, in spite of countless setbacks, is what ultimately improved a world-changing light bulb. And his persistence reminds us that excellence is born from commitment, not necessarily perfection. Leaders who demonstrate commitment will inspire trust. Hey, if you want your team to be committed, you as a leader need to model it first. Show them that you are in it for the long haul. You know what's going to happen? They will follow your lead, your example. And when things go wrong, that's fine. They will go wrong. Just remember Edison's perseverance. Commit to the process, not just the outcome, and excellence should follow. In conclusion, what have you learned so far about the stories that I've shared with you today? Well, Gus Petzel's Midget Special and Cecil Booth's vacuum cleaner, the Puffing Billy, remind us of the power of thinking outside of the box. Both men challenged conventional wisdom, worked with what they had, and achieved remarkable outcomes. They did not wait for perfection nor an ideal set of circumstances. They got up, they acted, they innovated, and they succeeded. And like Jackie Robinson and Aishi Shibusawa, they did not quit. Ladies and gentlemen, leadership is no different. And before I wrap things up, I want to have one last, tell you what, let's skip the review because we We're running short of time, but you know the 5 words. And when it comes to leadership, it's about clarity, simplifying the path without making it easy. It's about control, focusing on the important, not just the urgent. It's about courage, pushing beyond the good and striving for the great. It's about creativity, thinking outside the box and solving problems in new ways. That is being wise and not just smart. And finally, it's about commitment, delivering excellence even when perfection might seem a little bit out of way. Leadership in DevOps and everything else for that matter is about making the difference by knowing the difference. And when you lead with clarity, control, courage, creativity, and commitment, guess what? You too can build something extraordinary, something that will carry you and your team further than you could ever possibly imagine. So I ask you, have you found your ikigai? Are you ready to be the leader that makes the difference? Are you ready to build your own midget special, your own puffing Billy, and lead with purpose, innovation, and determination? Well, you know what? The road ahead, it's not going to be easy, but with the right mindset, it will be extraordinary. Now, take the wheel, hit the gas, and make the difference that only you can make. I'm Dr. Joe Perez. It was an honor to speak to you today, and thank you for your time. Or if you prefer, let me try this. Oh boy. Honjitsu wa ohanashi sasete itadaki koe deshita. Ojikano itadaki arigato gozaimashita. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. I think
Yes,
we have
sir.
time for maybe one or two questions by anyone. Question? Yes. All right.
Any questions? By the way, the QR code that you see up on the screen, if you're interested, come see me later and we can talk about it. Any questions? All right. Thank you again. I love this.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Joe.
Thank you.